Thank you for joining us for the Miami Valley Salute to Veterans. I'm Cindy LaPointe-Dafler, a volunteer host for the Miami Valley Communications Council. My husband was killed in Vietnam in 1969. He was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Being around our veterans and talking with them, hearing their stories and their thoughts is my way of honoring my husband's legacy. We hope that hearing these memories from veterans of our community will help us all better understand the dedication of those who have served. Today we're talking with Steve Richards of Vandalia, an Army veteran who served from 1965 to 1968. He will tell us the story of his time in the military. Thank you for being with us here today, Steve.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it. Let me start with questions.
Okay.
When you went into the military, were you drafted?
No, I enlisted.
You enlisted, and what made you decide to do that?
Well, after the Gulf of Tonkin, there in the fall of '64, that Texan really ramped that war up. And when you turned 18 and graduated from high school, you packed your bags.
Mm-hmm.
You were going on a field trip.
Yep.
So when I graduated in '65, I was still only 17, but then I turned 18, and at the time, you were drafted for 2 years. If you enlisted, it was 3 years. If you enlisted in the Navy or Air Force or Marines, it was 4 years. So the problem with getting drafted was you didn't know where you were going to wind up, what you were going to do in the service.
Mm-hmm.
And the Army would stick you where they wanted you. Well, I was a gearhead, interested in cars, very interested in cars. Back in those days, it was very easy to work on cars. They were basic, they were simple.
Yes.
Okay. My dad, my uncles knew about cars and kind of fiddled around. I became interested in cars. So I thought, I want to be a mechanic. That's what I want to do, is be a mechanic when I grow up. So I went and talked to the Army recruiter, and he said I could take that test that they were going to give me in basic, and to see whether or not I could pass it. And then if I did, then he would guarantee me being a mechanic, which sounded a lot better than infantry.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I took the test, and of course I passed it. So he said, well, we'll put you down then as going to be a mechanic. So then in September, I got on a bus with a bunch of other guys, and we went to Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic.
Uh-huh. And how long was that?
Basic was 10 weeks.
So when you went into basic training, was it difficult? Was it easy for you?
Well, actually, the physical part was pretty easy because I played sports in high school, so I was in shape.
Mm-hmm.
And so the running and the PT and the physical stuff was pretty easy on me. And then the classes were basically easy, simple, normal, average, routine stuff that you should have known by then, either through high school or your parents and your family,
Mm-hmm.
things that you learned as you grew up.
So after basic, you go to advanced training?
Yes.
And where was that?
That was in Aberdeen Proving Ground in Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh.
That was the mechanic school where we learned to work on Jeeps and trucks. And that was a 14-week school.
Wow.
That was pretty easy for me also because I had been hanging around my dad, my uncles for years, so I knew the difference between a pair of pliers and a screwdriver. I knew the difference between a spark plug and a fan belt. I knew
Sure.
all this stuff. So the school itself was pretty easy also.
I'll bet.
That was in, like I say, that was in Baltimore, but that was in December and January and February. So it was a little nippy.
Yeah. well, where did you grow up? Was it
in New Lebanon?
okay? So your winter was you were used to that.
Yeah,
No big
I
deal.
was used to it.
Had you ever left home before?
No,
Well,
just family vacations.
was that kind of a shock for you?
Well, by the time I got to Baltimore, I was, starting to get as settled in as a kid could be at the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a routine thing. It doesn't take long to get in the routine when you're in the service,
Mm-hmm.
because it's pretty regimented.
Yeah.
Your days are pretty regimented. If nothing else, when you join the service, you learn how to get up in the morning and go to work.
Yeah.
Okay? Because there's no snooze button on the drill instructor.
I like that.
Telling the Sarge, I don't feel like going today.
Yeah.
You get information and you march 1, 2, 3, 4 to wherever you're going. Double time a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So no, by that time, I was pretty settled in and it was pretty routine. Yeah.
Well, good.
Mm-hmm.
So no real homesickness.
No. Kept busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So after your advanced training, what was your first assignment?
Well, actually, I didn't leave Baltimore right away. The top 3 guys in each class stayed for 3 weeks to kind of tutor the fellas that had just showed up for the training, to tutor them and help them get along a little bit. So me and 2 other guys, we stayed for 3 weeks and acted as a tutor for one of the next classes that was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed for that, and then went home on leave, and then I went to Korea for a short period of time, for a few months.
What did you do there?
Was a mechanic, worked in the motor pool.
Okay.
If you were infantry, armor, or artillery, when you got out of that school, you went there.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that's where the action was. But if you were one, I don't know what the ratio is now. I'm not sure what the ratio was back then. But for every combat soldier, there are X number of people who are support.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have cooks and clerks and medics and mechanics. You have just all kinds of support people for every combat person.
Gotcha.
So if you were in one of those support groups, occupations, you either went to Korea or Germany for OJT.
What is OJT?
Oh, on-the-job training.
Oh, okay.
That way, when you got to Vietnam, you kind of knew what you were doing.
Right.
Okay? You weren't fresh out of school and thrown under the bus. You had some hands-on experience, knew what you were doing, which is very, very important when you're under fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I went to Korea for I guess 7 months, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I think 7 months, and worked as a mechanic in the motor pool. And then I came home on leave, and then I went to Vietnam.
Yeah. And what happened in Vietnam?
Well, I was in the 1st Infantry Division, and I was in the maintenance battalion, which was the fixing the jeeps and trucks, and some of the and some tanks, and at first I went to the headquarters. Well, when you first went there, everybody went to headquarters.
Okay.
And Company A.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they kind of sorted you out. They saw what kind of soldier you were to begin with, what kind of mechanic you were. Are you a it's kind of like a job, any other job that you have in civilian life. Are you a self-starter?
Mm-hmm.
Can you work without supervision? Can you get the job done? Follow procedures and guidelines and everything and do the job. So I was there at that Company A for a few weeks. There are 4 companies, A, B, C, and D, that, and they are the infantry and armor and artillery companies of a division. Company E was called the Air Cavalry. They were the helicopters,
Mm-hmm.
The gunships and those. Well, I was only in that Company A for about 2 weeks, and I guess well, you know how you draw the short straw,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, well, it didn't take long for the sergeant to see. And then, of course, he saw that I had graduated in the top of my class and that I had stayed back to be a tutor. Mm-hmm. And everything. And he saw that I knew what the heck I was doing.
Yes.
So there was a small contact team. There was a small team that was assigned to the Company E base, where now those guys were mostly aviation mechanics. They were helicopter and plane mechanics, but they had jeeps and trucks. So they needed to have mechanics there to fix their jeeps and trucks so that they could keep the helicopters and the planes in the air. Mm-hmm. So, you don't ever volunteer in the service.
I've heard that.
Oh, yeah. You never volunteer in the service. So, but I was volunteered to go up there. And
you were voluntold, huh?
Voluntold, right. So when I got there was 6 of us, and we had a sergeant that was in charge, and there was, like I say, there were 6 mechanics, the sergeant, and So we did all of the Jeeps and trucks for that entire base. The Company E and the other companies that were there on that base.
If you're just joining us, this is Miami Valley Communications Council Salute to Veterans podcast. And today we're talking with Army veteran Steve Richards. So, how long were you in Vietnam then? And did you move around or
No,
you just stayed with that?
Company headquarters of Company A was in a place called Zion, which was just northwest of Saigon, right at the edge of the Mekong Delta.
Okay.
And like I say, I was only there for a couple of weeks. And then I was sent to Company E, which was in a place called Phu Loy. And there was another company in Lai Khe and another one in Tay Ninh. And there were some other places around there. But once I got sent to Phu Loy, I stayed there the entire time I was there. Now, I did go to Lai Khe a couple of times. I went to Tay Ninh a couple of times, but that was only to maybe fix something or work on something. Mm-hmm. And I was only there for 2 days at the most and came right back.
I see.
But no, I stayed in Phu Loy the entire time. Mm-hmm. I was actually there for 15 months.
Wow, okay.
The way it worked back then, if you came home from Vietnam and you had 90 days or less left in the service, they let you out early. So I had a choice. I could come home in, I think, May for leave, and then spend the rest of the service, the rest of the summer somewhere in Fort somewhere in the Army.
Okay.
Or I could stay 94 days, come home with 88 days left in the service in June, be out of the Army, have the whole summer to myself. Free and clear. Mm-hmm. So I voluntarily stayed until June, came home, got out, got a chunk of money, okay, bought a car. Mm-hmm. So, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And got a job, I assume.
Oh, yes. Not at first.
Oh.
I'm sure that you've heard this story before from some of the other veterans. The way it is now is a lot different than the way it was back then. The hero's welcome. No, we didn't get that. Mm-mm. We didn't get that at all. As a matter of fact, the first few jobs that I applied for, I made the mistake of saying that I was a veteran, just come back from Vietnam. And I didn't get those jobs. I didn't get jobs. I was turned down from jobs.
Oh, wow.
I was turned down from jobs because I had served in Vietnam in the Army.
Oh, God.
I was called some things. I was told some things. I had some things said to me. I was confronted a couple times. But I did wind up getting a job at a Smedley Chevrolet, the Chevy dealer in Vandalia. Mm-hmm. I did get a job there. The fellow that ran the parts department there was was a pretty nice guy. Okay, so I wound up getting a job there and worked there in the parts department.
Oh.
And he was pretty cool about everything.
Yeah?
So he was, yes.
He wasn't a veteran too, was he?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing. How long did you stay there for your whole career? Or?
Oh, no. I tried my hand at Sinclair Community College, back in the day when it was at the Y.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I tried my hand there for a year.
Doing what?
I was studying mechanical engineering.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I was always interested in, in cars and engineering and different things.
And you were good at it.
Yes, I was by that time for sure.
Yeah.
And I tried that for a year, but by that time, a long time had passed since I had been a student.
Oh, yeah.
Number one. And number two, I was older than those kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And number three, I'd seen things and done some things. So, it just didn't work out. So I got a job working at a small factory in the warehouse, driving a forklift and loading and unloading trucks in a factory up there in Dayton. And I worked that for a few years, and I wound up being a truck driver.
Really?
I wound up being a truck driver, and I was a truck driver for most of my life. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You own your truck, or you work for somebody?
I worked for different companies.
Yeah.
I had some factory jobs also along the way.
Mm-hmm.
My work experience has been in the transportation industry. I've worked in warehouses, driving forklifts, loading and unloading trucks. I've driven trucks. I've worked in warehouses where I've loaded my trucks and made deliveries.
Wow.
And I've driven over the road. I've driven both local and regional and over the road.
Oh, gosh.
I've driven gasoline, oversized loads, and some other different jobs I've had. I had a job where when you buy something on eBay, like a stamp or a coin, the seller will put it in the mail and send it to you, right? What happens if you buy a piano? The post office won't do that.
No.
So I had a job for a couple of years, 2-3 years, I guess, with a company that was contracted out to eBay and some other sites, some other websites that if you bought a piano, we would come and get it and deliver it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last job I had for quite a number of years was with a mobile medical testing company, which was the second best gig I've ever had in my life.
It sounds interesting.
It was just a great, great job. Traveled the country and made a couple of dollars too.
Good for you. Yeah, that's great. When you were in the military, did you become close to any of your comrades?
Oh, sure. There was a fellow in basic training that was from Cincinnati. And after basic, we came home on leave, and I went down to see him for one Saturday, and we hung out together. And there was a fellow that was in Baldwin. I met in Aberdeen Proving Ground, met a couple of those guys, and I actually, he got assigned to another unit, another outfit in Korea. And I met him in Korea. And so we visited, we hung out some. And then, of course, there were fellows in Vietnam, yes. There was a fellow from Indiana. And when I came home before him. And then he came home, I think, Navy, well, it was later on. And I went to see him. He lived up near Fort Wayne. So I went to see him. And I had a real good buddy that lived in Iowa. And I went to see him one weekend. And but we stayed in touch for a while. But then, we kind of drifted apart, I guess. And that's the way it is.
Yeah, yeah. So you don't go to reunions or anything?
No. I'm sure that they have some 1st Infantry Division reunions somewhere, and they may have some reunions for the 701st Maintenance Battalion, but I haven't, I haven't seen anything online about any of that. And, but I suppose if I found out about one and it was close.
Yeah.
It would be cool to go to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something to search out, maybe.
Yes.
Have you been in Washington, D.C. and seen the wall?
I've been to D.C., but that was before.
Before the wall.
No. I have not seen the wall in D.C., but I did see the traveling wall. I saw that here in Dayton somewhere when I came to Dayton once.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that.
Well, good. Yeah.
And then I'm part of the Wounded Warrior Project. I do give donations.
Oh,
good. I donate to Wounded Warrior.
Are you a member of a VFW, American Legion, or anything?
No. I've thought about joining from time to time, but I guess I just never had any inclination to go there.
I understand. How did that experience going to Vietnam, how did that change you?
Wow. Well, it was 50-some years ago, I guess. So,
sure.
Yeah. And I was 18, 19. What the heck did I know?
Yeah.
What did I know?
Did you think you knew everything?
Oh, sure you do. When you're 18, I like to say that before I joined the Army, before I joined the Army, my father was probably the stupidest man I ever met in my life. But then I came back from Vietnam, and it was amazing the amount of knowledge that man had gained in those 3 years.
Amen.
Amazing. Yeah.
Oh.
The first thing, I guess, was just I realized that obviously I had grown up in many different ways, seen some things that that no 18 or 19-year-old should ever have to see, done some things. But I guess one of the things I had was I had some confidence in knowing what I could do. I could get a job as a mechanic. I could work somewhere. I knew how to get up in the morning and go to work. I knew how to do a job. So it gave me confidence in my employment field.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. Gave you some self-discipline.
Yes.
That is a big plus. So you readjusted to civilian life. No difficulties, just...
No difficulties.
That's good.
And I think that's because once I started working, and then after a while, I met a girl.
Yeah.
And had a baby girl. So that really, that really brought me down to earth.
Oh, yeah.
All of that brought me down to earth. But no, not really problems adjusting.
That's good.
Because you keep busy, okay? If you start work, go to work, keep busy, keep your mind on, keep focused on things that you want to do in life, then it makes the adjusting a lot easier.
What would you like people to remember from your story?
I think how important it is to remember veterans and the sacrifices that we made. Kids, thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away from home, and thrust into dangerous situations that high school and family life can never, ever prepare you for. No resemblance whatsoever. And so you take that time out of your life at such a young age when you're still very impressionable, okay, and you're sure about a lot of things, but you're so unsure about everything, okay? The things you're sure about are minuscule. The things that you're unsure about are basically what's really important in life. And so you're thrown into that situation, you cope with it, you do what you're supposed to do, you do what you're ordered to do. And, well, it is a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice that these young men and women make. And so no matter how you feel about the politics of it, these young men and women are, you asked me earlier, okay, why did I join? Why did I join? Okay. You know, certain people say things in history that just live on forever and ever and ever and ever. The one thing that was said to my generation, those of us who were teenagers in the early 60s, the one thing that stuck with me throughout high school, throughout the military, throughout since then, the one thing that stuck is what JFK said. It's the ask not question. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. My country called. I answered. I served. That's what those kids are doing now.
Yes.
All these years later, That's what they're doing now.
Yes.
They have answered their country's call. And so, well, let's support them as best we can, no matter how we feel about it.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming in, Steve. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'm glad to hear your story and just thanks.
You're welcome.